we come in and show them where the loopholes, where the holes are in their finances, or where they could make adjustments so that they could have the proper growth and scale and be able to present things to investors if they needed to grow.
Welcome to the Amplify Your Business podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of inspiring entrepreneurs who have turned challenges into opportunities and built themselves thriving businesses. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a powerhouse in the world of financial strategy, Lillia Sanders. She is the founder and CEO of Skillia Business Solutions, LLC, where she serves as a fractional CFO, empowering small teams in high revenue service industries to achieve financial clarity and confidence. But Lillia's journey to success is far from conventional. From overcoming homelessness as a single mother to becoming a sought-after financial strategist, her story is one of resilience, reinvention, as well as mindset mastery. So through her work, Lillia doesn't just crunch the numbers. She transforms lives by helping entrepreneurs scale, sell, and also grow their businesses with purpose and precision. Her unique approach combines technical expertise with a deep understanding of her clients' stories, ensuring strategies are tailored to their goals. So let's dive in and learn from this remarkable entrepreneur who has turned challenges into a roadmap for thriving. Welcome to Amplify Your Business, Lillia.
Thank you, Lance. That was a beautiful introduction, and I'm grateful to be here.
Well, what the audience doesn't know is that we've had a conversation already in which we recorded your journey a bit in what we call entrepreneur stories, which can be found over at amplemedia.com or Amplify Your Business. You can also find it there too. And I really, really, truly have to say that your story is one that is just so inspiring. And I'm really excited for our audience to learn a little bit more about what you've gone through and how you've overcome the things that you have to get to where you're at today. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we all know that there's a lot of challenges that we have to overcome as business owners, but you layer in some of the personal things that you've done. And I mean, this is truly a triumphant story. So congratulations to you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for your willingness to share with our audience today.
Thank
Okay,
you for having
so
me.
let's dive into your business first. I want to get a little bit more of a snapshot as to what you do. I mentioned that you are fractional CFO. You are working with a lot of businesses. You're helping them with the numbers side of things. So just tell me a little bit more about who you serve and what problems you're trying to help them overcome, I guess, in their businesses.
Yeah, so most entrepreneurs who come to me, they either have investors that they need to send reports to, or they want to scale, but they don't know what their financial position is, or they're losing money and they don't know why. And so what we do is we come in and we analyze the numbers. This is what your income is. This is what your expenses are. We analyze their financial reports because a lot of times they'll receive the reports, but they don't know how to read them.
Yes.
And a lot of times I'll provide more in-depth reports so that they understand where their expenses, how it's affecting their income and things like that. So we go in and we provide financial strategies, financial solutions, and we want them to understand what's going on so they can make smarter business decisions. They know their business, but they have to know how to allow it to grow. And so we come in and show them where the loopholes, where the holes are in their finances, or where they could make adjustments so that they could have the proper growth and scale and be able to present things to investors if they needed to grow. So
Yeah. Now, I want to really stress to the audience who's listening or watching this right now, you want to pay attention to this particular episode because one of the commonalities that I have found as we've interviewed over 300 entrepreneurs is the numbers. Most of the successful ones will say, when I ask them what were some of the keys to their success or what do they wish that they would have done differently if they could kind of turn back time, and almost universally, they will say, I needed to have a better handle on my numbers in those early days than what I actually had. That would have propelled my growth so much better. Or they say, because I really understood my numbers, that allowed me to grow. And so this is what we're digging into here today, folks. And so definitely pay attention. Now, Lillia, there is a difference between a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CFO. Can you explain those different roles, I guess, a little bit better for everybody? Because I hear this often where people say, well, I've got a bookkeeper. They kind of look after everything and I don't really pay attention to it. I hope that it's right. But again, like you said, they don't necessarily dig into the numbers and what those numbers mean much. And so let's start there. So what's the difference between a bookkeeper, an accountant, and a CFO?
Sure. So a bookkeeper ideally is someone who tracks the finances. So
Okay.
they're categorizing things as the money comes in so that they could generate a report. This is where your costs are going. This is where your utilities are going. This is how much you're spending here. Ultimately, it's putting in the data. And so that is very important, but it when it's done correctly, that's a lot of times and sometimes unfortunately it's not done correctly. So having a great bookkeeper is very important. The next level is a lot of times they generate these reports and when I sit with my clients, they're like, "Wait, why is this number here?" And a lot of times you're able to kind of analyze how the bookkeeping is going so that it grows into potential insight into your business and how the spending is going. Some of them, it is correct. They just had no idea they were spending so much. And
Mhm.
so I've had a lot of people say, I've gotten the reports, but I just kind of toss them to the side. So at me as a CFO, I'd come in and be like, this is what's happening. Does that look right? No, I don't want to spend 25% on meals. How do we adjust that? Okay, well, what do you want to do? And this will increase the profit margin. So having an understanding of what's going on in your business financially, which will give you peace and confidence, but also a strategy to make it even better. Who doesn't want to make more money? And then an accountant, a lot of times, is sometimes used interchangeable with a bookkeeper. You go to school for accounting, but there's accountants that don't know bookkeeping. There's accountants that just do taxes. There's accountants that just do auditing. And so there's a lot of specialties that come with accounting. And so that's usually a more specialized skill. Although I've worked with people who just have a degree and they've never applied it. And so accountant is kind of a loose term. It could be somebody who's doing books, but for the most part, it's usually people are usually referring to a tax accountant.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, a CFO comes in, we analyze, we break things down, we help you understand the numbers, and we want you to grow. We want you to make profits. We want you to have to be able to sleep at night because you know what's going on and you have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like if people can wrap their mind around, an old adage, which is, good data in, you get good data out, or garbage in, garbage out
Yeah.
is really the term when it comes to data. And that's really what the bookkeeper's about, right? And we've all, as business owners, probably all of us anyway, hopefully there's some of you out there who started out with a great bookkeeper and it's always been great. But I know I've gone through different iterations there, and the the categorization, the tracking of things is not done well. And
Mhm.
so if you've got bad data, garbage in, you're garbage out, and you can't make any decisions off of that, right? As a CFO or as the business owner and so on. So that's so critical. It starts there. And then what you're doing is you're really then helping people strategize as to how do you improve the business based off of those numbers, based off of the things that they can do with the dollars and cents that are running through that business, right?
Yes, that's correct. And just to add to what you're saying, a lot of what I have to do is oversee the books, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
CFOs could come in kind of as oversight, like, hey, make sure
yeah,
my books are correct because they don't have the time. And most people don't enjoy the financial nitty gritty. And so
yeah,
a fractional CFO could come in and oversee to make sure and kind of hold the bookkeepers accountable to almost like a middle person between the owner and this is what it should be looking like and
yeah.
follow through, ensuring follow through.
Which is brilliant because again, most business owners, we're busy out there doing the things we need to do to manage their business, to chase after new business, to focus on growing the business. And so if you're stuck in the weeds of your general ledger and stuff, like that's not the place where you should be at the CF or CMO or sorry, CEO. Okay, so let's get into the strategy side of things. So let's share with the audience some of those key metrics that you really zero in as that fractional CFO. So what should they be looking at when they're looking at the books, when
Mhm.
they're analyzing things? What are some of the key metrics, numbers, ratios, whatever that they should really be focused on?
Correct. So, a big part of what we do is profit margin, literally the bottom line. How much of this
Yeah.
money are you keeping and how much do you want to keep? How much are you keeping for yourself? So, a lot of those are percentage based. So, we need to know how much is coming in, how much is coming out before you get kind of like your gross profit after the supplies or materials come out and all of that. And a lot of it is just discussions, but a big thing is I would say looking at your profit margins and looking at how much of your expenses is coming from your income. Like I said, if 50% is going towards maybe your rent, then maybe we need to make an adjustment. If 25% is going towards meals, so a percentage we look at is how much of your expenses of your income is being affected, is being ate up or consumed by your income. And then how do we tweak your income? Sometimes 2% here, 3% here. If you raise your rates by 2% in this product or in this field, over time it's gonna do this. And if we lower, let's say, how much you eat out to 10%, now the profit margin is growing. So a lot of times it's we're teaching them how to make little things that doesn't have to be as aggressive, but little things will increase the profit margin. Profit margin means more bonuses, more pay, being able to give out bonuses, being able to scale, or even look good for someone who's trying to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the focus on the profitability as being, you know, the primary number that you're looking at, because I mean, the reason why most of us get into business is because we're trying to create a profitable business. It's not just
Correct.
something where we're trying to, you know, create a job for ourselves. We're trying to grow something. And so profit first, right? That's got to be the
Profit
mantra. And
first.
so that's the number that matters the most. And then you help them figure out the scenario planning to figure out which levers they need to pull to really maximize that then, right?
That's absolutely right.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you do then as a fractional CFO beyond what we've already talked about that really helps to prepare businesses for growth. Because I think this is a big challenge a lot of our listeners have. They all have aspirations to grow their businesses, at least generally speaking, that's the case. And it's difficult sometimes to wrap the head around how they're going to achieve that. So, from a CFO's perspective, how do you help prepare businesses for growth?
I Easy answer, I help them find the money in order to grow. So, we're a lot of them don't know where their money is, and so in order to scale, you need finances and funding most of the time. And so a lot of what we do is look at, like I said, the expenses. How do we create a margin so we have a budget for marketing to bring in more people? So we have the budget for to bring in one more contractor or to bring in a subcontractor, to bring in an employee. Can we still cover taxes? What do we need to tweak in order to do so? And sometimes it's not cutting expenses, sometimes it's raising income or sales or whatever it needs. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that we would do to accomplish that.
So, I think some of the best lessons are learned from the mistakes that we make along the way, right? So, the school of hard knocks, so to
Man,
speak. In business, we make a lot of mistakes as business owners, as people trying to grow businesses. What is a common mistake that you frequently see when you're working with clients? You know, as it relates to their finances, and I'm just curious how people can avoid those common mistakes as well.
I would say it varies really. The biggest mistake is the categorization. Like you said,
Mm.
garbage in, garbage out. Just recently, I did a consult and the woman had contractors, but it was being categorized as her income. So,
Oh,
inevitably, yes, she had no idea. And she was doing her own books. She would have been paying taxes on that. I've seen people
Holidays.
put sales taxes in the wrong place where they're paying it, but they were it was in revenue, and so it was they would have also been paying taxes as sales income when they take the taxes, but they also pay them,
Yeah.
right? Sales tax. And so little things like that can save you thousands or you can lose thousands. I'm really meticulous to see and oversee where things are being categorized so that we don't miss so things aren't mistranslated. We can't work with numbers that are incorrect. And so I break down everything line by line. Do all these vendors go here? Is this where does it all match? Does it all make sense? And is it all accurate? So that we can get it corrected and make sure you're not paying money you shouldn't be, like taxes that they already have received. So sometimes the littlest
Yeah.
things being moved, but if you don't have an eye for it, you might not see it. Or like you said, if you're grinding, some of that stuff is kind of overlooked.
So, in today's environment, socio-economic, political environment that we find ourselves in, right across North America, right? You're in the States,
Mm,
I'm up in Canada, but there's a lot of things happening right now, which is creating, some potential economic uncertainty for a lot of different sectors. What advice would you have to, for small businesses who are listening here today to navigate economic uncertainty from a CFO's perspective?
I think the best thing is to have some kinda budget for emergencies.
Mm,
And so
that
make
slush
sure
fund, right?
yes,
The
you
rainy
put
day fund.
aside money, even if it's 1%, 2%, always plan for it, whether in your personal life, honestly, or in your
Yeah.
business, always plan for an emergency. Don't leverage loans, don't leverage debt unless you absolutely have to, because it does have its benefits. But overall, the biggest thing I would say is plan. Just like you plan to pay yourself, take out the money and plan for emergencies, even upcoming expenses. Plan for that client leaving. That's probably the best thing that you could do, and that with increasing your margins. Also, I have a business strategy certification, and so with that, a lot of it comes in strategizing. Having
Mm,
being aware of your business to where you have to pivot, and Lance, I know you shared even in your journey having to pivot what you do, what your skill set is. So that's another thing, leveraging the skill sets that you do have if need be when things shift. There was an example of gym that during COVID, they had to close because everything closed during COVID. And when they went through the business strategy process, they realized that they could rent out, and it was basically a sheet to get you to think outside the box, but they started
mm.
renting out their equipment, and a lot of times you have to pivot, like, "Okay, well, if they can't come here, we'll bring it to them." And so business strategizing and always setting aside money for emergencies, there's no way to avoid it. As all entrepreneurs know, that big client could cancel tomorrow, and
Yeah.
obviously marketing is huge too. Never stop marketing because then, as things go down, you have enough leads and flow coming in. So it's kind of a rhythm as me and you have discussed, Lance.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate the plug for marketing as a marketer myself. Yeah. Basically what you're saying is you gotta be careful that you've got plans in place, strategies in place to keep the revenue flowing, right? And then
Yeah.
plans in place to be able to handle the dips in that revenue.
Yeah.
So having those rainy day funds. And you're down in Texas, I'm up in Alberta. Both economies are very driven. We're getting diversified more all the time, but driven by oil and gas, right? And so
Yes.
oil and gas, we are always seeing those cycles. And so there's so many businesses that go through massive, growth through the good times, and then they collapse and go
Yes.
bankrupt when things dip. And so the best ones are the ones that understand exactly what you're saying. Like take some of those profits,
Yes.
put it aside, or
Exactly.
diversify it somehow so that you have that ability to sustain yourself through the bad times, right? Because we always have it. And that's just a much more dramatic cycle in that industry. But every business, you're going to end up in a time in which you have a downturn, whether that is, like you said, a big customer of yours
Mm.
ends up, you know, not using your services for whatever reason. And so then that's going to have a massive hit, or some other socioeconomic, political situation. Yeah, good advice.
Correct. Thank you.
Um, what's uh, a financial habit or tool that you really swear by, that you think that every business owner, every entrepreneur really should be leveraging, using, taking advantage of? Is there any tools, any habits that you have developed over the years, or that you see with the most successful clients of yours?
Yes, I feel like knowing your cash flow and checking it. Don't be intimidated by it. If you
Yeah,
are, hire a CFO, but knowing what's going on, even if there's plenty of money in the bank, because it does catch up with you. So I feel like a habit or a tool is looking at your financial statements and talking about it, planning it. Even if you don't understand it, find somebody that you could discuss that stuff with. But I feel like I hear it all the time. Months go by and they're like, "Oh, I thought I had money," or "I thought we were doing good." And then unknown expenses come through and things like that. So for me, what gets doesn't get managed gets missed. And so
mm,
you have to keep watching it, keep an eye on it, ask questions. And like I said, if it's not you, have hire somebody that can keep you informed about it so that you can. And then yeah, I feel like for me, and then just keep an eye on your profit margins. So there's this benchmark assessment that we have where every year you could see, has my profits gone up, down? Why is that? Because it's we all care about our skill and our craft and we want it to be successful. And so
yeah,
look at your numbers, and if you need somebody to translate without judgment or feeling intimidated, find somebody that can help you with that, because you can't grow without knowing it.
yeah, yeah. You can't grow without knowing. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's well said. Okay, I want to shift a little bit more to your personal journey through entrepreneurship as well. In our previous time conversation or interview, when I had that opportunity to chat with you about your journey, you had said something about shifting your mindset. So you used to have a much more scarcity mindset, and you shifted it to an abundance mindset. And you said to me at that time that that was really where you thought was a massive turning point in your success. What practical steps did you take to make that shift? Because I think a lot of people hear about that, the importance of mindset, importance of having an abundant mindset, but really struggle with understanding how to actually put that into practice. And so I'd love to hear how you actually did it.
Yeah, thank you. So for me, I had to adopt certain practices. And there's a lot of like self-help books. I mean, as cliche as that is, that you can read. You can't think differently unless you expose yourself to different things. And so
Mm,
for me, shifting my mindset required a different level of exposure. The people I hang around, what I listen to, making time for that stuff, reading books, applying skill sets that people who are where I want to be, what do they do so that I can do it too? Because a lot of it is really foundational, whether it is planning your goals or knowing where your finances are, or networking and connecting with people. For me, I journal and I write down my goals, affirmations. I like to say things. I There was a point where I was really struggling because things were going well, and it was weird for me. That's probably the best way to explain it. It was like there was a disconnect,
it was
and
uncomfortable, right?
it was
Success was uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Yes,
Yeah,
it was like
yeah,
that's the word I'm looking for. And
yeah.
so I would listen to these YouTube, I think it's called Motivational Hub, and it was
Mm,
these this day is gonna be great. I accept money as it flows to me, just different things, because now when hard things arise, those thoughts, the good thoughts could come, whether it's what you've listened to, what you wrote down, programming your mind, but repetitively, so that when things get hard, the right thoughts come through or the right solution. And I used to really like reading people who've been through hard things, because it's easy to
mm,
have a victim mentality, but if
yeah.
you talk to people and they open up a lot, most of us have been through a lot of different things, and it's not fun, but it's reassuring that if they can do it, so can I, or if they can make it through it, so can I.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is because I want to hear, from entrepreneurs who have found success talk about the journey to success, because a lot of times when you look at other businesses, other entrepreneurs, you think, oh, they have always had it figured out, right?
Yes.
It was so easy for them. Why does it always seem like a struggle for me? And
Mhm.
the reality of it is that we all have gone through the struggles, and some of us have, done things that have helped us get through that and find success. Other people get stuck in that continuous hamster wheel of struggle. And a lot of that, I believe very strongly, comes down to mindset for sure. And
Mhm.
so thank you for sharing that. Like, because like in your journey, you really were at a place of rock bottom. Like I said in the intro, you were homeless and you have two daughters that you're trying to raise.
3
And
daughters.
or sorry, three daughters, yeah.
Yeah.
And yet you were able to dig deep and find whatever that was inside you to do that. And so take me back to that moment when you were at your lowest of lows. How was it that you found the energy, the motivation to actually start to change, actually start to, step out of that victim mentality and the scarcity mindset and step into the abundance? Because it takes a first step before you can get started on that journey, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I just remember because you come out of when you come out of something so dark and heavy, it's kind of like you could see it as, like I said, an excuse or an opportunity. And
Mm,
so for me, it was literally just kind of like you said, the mindset. This is not who I am. Who do I want to be? I could be whoever I want. And that's
yep.
the beauty of rock bottom. Like, I don't know if people realize it, but for me, I just remember being like, I didn't recognize who I was in the situation I was in at the time, but I wanted to write my own story. Like, I literally could start from anywhere. And so it was a matter of what does that look like? How do I get there? Okay, well, I need to read this. I need to do this. Well, how do I sharpen my skill? Okay, these my clients are going from bookkeeping to wanting CFO services. They see something in me that I don't see. How do I get better at that? And so it just the baby steps was really the way you perceive things, which for me was I get to start over. It was an opportunity. As hard as it was I don't my biggest thing probably honestly is I could still be stuck where I was or I could do whatever I want. I just remember telling myself I could do whatever and be whoever I want because I was in a situation where I didn't have any freedom. And so going from bondage or a cage to being set free, I didn't wanna stay stuck, and I really were around people who made sure I could and would, and a lot of them wasn't family, it was people that I ended up meeting along the way.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's incredible, right? And talk about the other people, right? The people that you meet,
Mhm,
relationships. This is something that
mhm.
we touched on a little bit in our last conversation, and something that, since then, anytime that you and I've had an interaction, it just is quite a like abundantly apparent. You focus on relationships and
I
genuine
do.
relationships, and
Yeah.
that's got to be a cornerstone to your business as well, and the philosophy that you bring into your business. I'm curious if you could share with our audience how you approach connecting with clients on that deeper level that really does foster those real genuine deep relationships. And I'd imagine that has to have been a critical factor to your long-term success as well, right?
It yes, it really, really, really has. So, I had a home healthcare business before this one, young in my 20s, and when I used to go to a lot of business seminars, still trying to learn and foster my skill, and one thing they said is they taught having genuine connections with people, but they said people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I feel like you care less. And so I feel like genuine connections happen when people just want to, at the end of the day, all of us are just people. I mean, I've dealt with billion-dollar companies and they're everyday people with everyday worries. Obviously, there's people who are on high horses, but for the most part, you could tell within 5 minutes if you like somebody. But for me, I like to like who I work with. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me get to know you. What is keeping you up at night? What are you embarrassed about? Like what who do you have to care for? What have you been through and how can I help you not go through that again? And unfortunately, financial any kind of financial hardship we all go through and it's part of our everyday life. Most people, I mean, we can't function without finances. So the beauty is what I do helps finances, but how when I make a company succeed, I'm helping families succeed. And
Yeah.
so I just love getting to know who they are, what they care about, so that I could even think about that when I'm helping them. Okay, they have a sick father, they have little kids. And because that drove my business, my skill is what got me out of it, which is why I named my business Skillia Business Solution. I want their skill to get them out of whatever they're in and help them grow financially.
Yeah. Well put. I love that. Yeah, and it's about serving. It's about helping others,
Yes,
right? Like I just
exactly.
get so much joy out of that.
Yeah,
That's what really drives me. And I can see that you share that same passion. That's really exciting. One of the things too that just thinking about what you said in terms of how you got out of the rut that you were in,
yeah,
and you said a lot of it was the people that you were surrounding yourself with, and obviously, getting some support from them in whatever way, and some energy from them too, as you're trying to navigate through things and learning from other people and stuff. I think in our previous conversation, you talked a little bit about the importance of having a coach, or how you really attribute a lot of your success to having a business coach. And I'm curious if you could share some thoughts around that, or your experience around that, because I think there's a lot of people that maybe look at business coaches as being this another expense on their business. And especially, as a person looking at the numbers yourself, and you're looking at those two columns of the cost and the revenue, and you're like, okay, I know in order to grow to get to that next level, I need to invest in myself, but I also have constraints on the cash flow side of things. Is this actually an investment that I should or could be making? So tell me a little bit about that. When did you start to use a business coach, and or what would you say to people who are trying to balance that investment versus it being a cost?
yeah. So for me, it was tied to what we talked about earlier. I need to do something different. I need to think different. And for me, I feel like most humans need some kind of accountability. We're all self-starters, but for me, it hiring a business coach totally shifted my mindset and completely doubled my income because every week you should be doing this. Have you done this? Have you marketed? I mean, he was big on marketing, Lance. Never stop marketing. He used to say, never start marketing. And then, like I think I shared with you, I was surprised so many people said yes because of the relationship they built with me in the first 10, 15 minutes of our introductory call, to where they were like, "I like you, I trust you," and I didn't know official sales, so for me, it was just like, "I just wanna get to know you and tell you what I do," and when it comes to finances, no, like, interest should be important. But
Mhm.
having a coach will challenge you in ways that and pull you out of your comfort zone. That's what it did for me, and it shifted my mindset. And that helped shift my mindset from small, "Oh, I'm charging this," to, "What are you charging? You should be charging this. What are you doing? This is what CFOs do." And just give a different insight and perspective on your business to where my return on investment, I mean, my business took off just because it's easy when you're by yourself and you just have your small team to, I don't know, you're kind of rolling solo. And so you think you're doing it right. You think you know you're in the field. But when you have somebody say, "What about this? Well, why aren't you doing this?" And it's like, "Oh, well, I'm doing what I've always done." It gets you out of your routine and it really, you can't go wrong. So for me at the time, I mean, my youngest is probably barely a year and my oldest is probably 4. And I had savings and it was a huge investment, but I just knew I will keep doing the same thing unless I have somebody in my life that will force me to do something different, but also has a track record because you don't want in your business coach. So a track record for success, financial success, mindset success, and who will hold me accountable. I hands on would recommend a business coach because you always need somebody that's going to push you out of your comfort zone and make you think differently. And I will help you find the money if you don't think you have it, because the return on investment, I mean, by then within weeks, I was making probably double my income based on
Wow.
his push to market and just challenging how I marketed and who I was as a person, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The best investment you're going to make in your business probably is going to be the investment that you make in yourself in
Correct.
those, earlier days as you're trying to grow your business, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I think we're going to leave it there. You've given us a ton of information in terms of financial, planning and management, and how to really think about the numbers. And then also, sharing just your experience and how that's impacted you and the lessons that you've learned along the way. So thank you so much for that. If anybody wanted to connect with you, either they're hearing your story and are just inspired to reach out to you on a personal level, or if they are needing somebody that is going to be there to help them find the number or the money in their business to continue to, really reinvest and grow that business. What would be the best way for them to do that, to connect with you?
Sure. So the easiest way to connect with me is through my website, skilliabusiness.com, or on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find resources, videos where I will educate you and just give you more information. So you could follow me on LinkedIn, which is linkedin.com/Skillia, or you could look me up by my name, Lillia Sanders. So LinkedIn or my website would be the best way to ask questions or get some more insight.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you again. I appreciate the journey that you've been on, and I really appreciate you sharing all of your wisdom, your experiences, and inspiring the people who are listening to us today. So thank you so much, Lilia. And for those of you who are listening today and you really like this episode and want to check out some of our other episodes, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find the archives. And of course, you can search Amplify Your Business, the Entrepreneur Podcast, on any of the major podcast platforms. We are just about everywhere. So check it out, everybody. Until next time, have a prosperous day.